very happy to introduce our moderator. So she is a true believer in the magic of content marketing, and she's a co-founder of Raha, and they ensured at that time that they had technological and business access. And we've seen the advantages of though people who made those kinds of moves at that time and what has happened since. There are also immersive learning experiences to help global audiences understand crafts and connect with artisan communities better. And this is critical again for all of us to understand the value of the crafts we buy and what the difference is, which Neelam Sibber was referring to earlier this morning. So with that, I hand over to you, Amrita Haldipur, and please give her a warm round of applause and take this off for us, please.
Thank you so much, Nima, and I'm hoping to see more audience popping in as we start. Yeah, but thank you, Arundhati, Susmita, and Arjun. I think it's Akshay. I'm sorry. And it's a topic which is very close to my heart because I have kind of been on that entrepreneurial journey, realizing what a support system really means, and I'm also associated with the Creative and Cultural Businesses program at IIM Ahmedabad. So I know that for a theme which is creativity, culture, what it means to have a support system. So I won't take much longer, but I think there were certain things I wanted to read out from the report as I lay the questions further. And these are some stats which I thought was very interesting that yes, like Priya shared this morning, there is a need for right financing. There is a need for right financing at the right time, at the right place, under the right conditions, no doubt. But it's all a matter of the left brain activity at the end of the day, right? And people who are really behind, right from founders to the artisans, are all humans and driven by passion. And there is so much of a heart involved. So, how do we really bring or create an inclusive ecosystem where the left and the right brain both they feel nurtured, right? And I think an ecosystem largely, increasingly, when we talk about business, yes, profits are important. We need to talk about business, we need to talk about economics, we need to talk about all those things. But founders do go through a lot more. So I think with that, I'm going to request each of you to do a little introduction on, because it's your journey. So just for the audience here, Arundhati is the founder of Studio Beej. Susmita is a part of NRCEL, the whole 10,000 Women, Goldman Sachs program. So she has some very interesting insights about women entrepreneurs and what an ecosystem for them looks and feels like. And of course, there's Akshay, who is very closely working from Nudge with social entrepreneurs. And I think this is a very, very interesting conversation because, as we all would have realized, this sector, which has creative manufacturing and handmade sector, which I'm so glad we have that kind of a name given up the sector, it has people coming from different walks of life, right? There are social entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs. So people coming from different corporate careers. So I think let me start with asking Arundhati a question and she's had a long corporate career. So my question to you, Arundhati, is what prompted you to really leave that cushiony job and take on to this very creative entrepreneurial journey building Studio Beej? And you have been very vocal on social media, and we're so grateful because when we hear the real stories from entrepreneurs while they're building, it gives us a lot of strength, and we know that we're not alone suffering, or even if there are joys, we share that. So you've been very vocal about that. So thank you for that. So would love to know what's your journey been building Beej, and just walk us through the blocks you've had in the support system.
Good afternoon, everyone. So a little about myself. I spent 17 years in corporate HR, worked largely with banks, consulting. And then in 2019, I had already become head of HR of a company and I just got bored. We have that in common in the panel. And then I said, I have to do something else. And sustainability was always a interest area for me. very personally because I have a little young daughter. She's 13 now, but she was much younger then. And I keep thinking that when she grows up, the world will be a very harsh place. So, keeping that in mind, I decided to do something in the sustainability space. And fashion just happened by chance. My dad has a leather business, so I started exploring alternate materials when it came to leather. Went to him with my proposal. He said, forget it. 50 years, built a business, makes money. I like your idea, but not moving to it. So I said, all right. And that's when I set up Beej. And that was 2020. We started on 14 January 2020, and by March 2020, we were in lockdown. I cannot even begin to tell you how hard it was because every single day I cursed myself for leaving my job. Bad timing. Why did I do it? All of that, right? And yet you persevered, yet I built it. We have grown over the last 3 years, grew from strength to strength. But that's the thing about entrepreneurship is everybody says do it, we're here to support you, but nothing, no amount of mentorship sessions, no amount of talking to anybody, speaking to anybody prepares you for what's really coming. Because every journey is similar, yet every journey is unique and different, right? Your struggles are your own. And I was building a business as a single mom, as a single founder, and through COVID, a lot of my staff was at home. I have my own karigars. कोई बिहार छुट्टी पे चला गया है, वापस नहीं आ पाया है. So all of that, right? And I spoke to someone, and he said something very interesting, and that stayed with me forever. He said that, see, this whole thing of entrepreneurship starts appearing very sexy because of what we read today in social media, right? So and so got funded, so and so got awarded, so and so. The journey of entrepreneurship is sexy in hindsight. While you're building it, it is hard work. It is the stuff you don't like to do, like file the GST, like do the bills, the taxes. It's that you have to do all of it, and then it happens. So I was building, and at some point the stress started getting to me. I felt like I didn't want to go to the studio anymore. So Monday mornings I used to be like, oh my god, अब जाके office में 12 घंटा लगाना है. And when that started happening, I started bringing stress home. So, and there was at some point at which my daughter told me, she said, please look at you, you have displaced anger. Teenagers say this stuff, right? And I'm like, okay, I need to really take a hard look at what's happening. And I said, so back sometime in April, I actually decided to wind up my business. Although the business was doing well, but I just couldn't deal with the whole stress of every day going there and trying to make it work. And that's the social media announcement that Amrita spoke about. And we put out a post out there. We are a very community led brand because we are bringing a concept to India which is so new that I think a large part of our brand is about educating people about plant based and plant leathers and things like that. So that's always been the brand. So we put out a post saying that, hey guys, we are winding down because just like the craft sector, I think sustainable businesses are a little ahead of its time in India and couldn't do it. And that's when magic happened. And so I want to tell everybody here that the power of community is beyond incredible. When we put out this message, and my motives are very simple. I was thinking as a businessman who was tired कि मेरे पास इन्वेंट्री है, उसको बेचना है, कंपनी बंद करना है, I owe some people some money, वो देना है. Magic happened. We did our annual sales in 45 days. So that's just people who came out, bought. I realized that there were so many people who wrote to me saying, we follow you for learning about this space, we follow your journey, we follow this, we follow that. And then I realized that, we start feeling very alone, but we are not alone. And I was also reading a lot at that point because I was trying to just make sense of my own journey. I grew up in a Bengali household where you're not allowed to get less than 90%. So it felt like a big failure where I was saying ki business band karna hai. And then I read this lady called Brené Brown. I would strongly recommend her if you guys want to read. And she says this thing that courage and vulnerability are two sides of the same coin, right? So when I put out this post. A lot of people said you took a lot of courage to do that. But I also was being very vulnerable in that moment when I put out that. So all of us have these moments when we are required to be courageous, but actually we are also needed to be vulnerable. And when you do that, you realize support comes to you in ways you have never imagined. So that was a large part of my journey. And now, in fact, we're bringing the brand back. Um, and I'm in a much better mind space, thankfully. But I also want to say one last thing before I pass it on, saying, a few years back, building businesses was different because you focused on your own business and you focused on building it step by step. The social media is a very double-edged sword. So while you get to know what's happening, you're constantly also seeing what people are doing, right? This one got funded, that one got this opportunity, this one got this client. It screws with your brain in unimaginable ways because you feel you're doing well till you see the next guy who's done better, right? And then that well is out of the window. So don't do that. I have done a lot of that. That doom scrolling is real. And so I think we got to stop doing that and realize that also how far you've come. And when I was quitting, I was actually telling myself that, I'm feeling. And then I read somewhere that had I not started, I mean, why is passing this whole thing of about reaching a milestone? Why are we not seeing how far we've come? I mean, 4 years back, I was just another corporate HR person in the corporate world. Today, my entire identity is because of Beej. I mean, if I stopped for a moment to appreciate that, if all of us stopped for a moment to appreciate what we have achieved, then the journey ahead just gets a little easier.
Thank you so much, Arundhati. I think a lot of us have closely seen her journey and been very, very inspired. I think a segue from there is my next question for Susmita, who's surrounded with women entrepreneurs. And I'm so glad because it's something which is very close to my heart. And I feel among all the kind of ecosystems that exist and the sector that we are here today talking about, we know that, I mean, it's not just about women, but yes, it is, a sector which employs predominantly women, right from artisans to the young and the older entrepreneurs. So my question to you, Sushmita, is what are the unique challenges that you are witnessing among women entrepreneurs? And I think one of the things, because your program is associated with IIMs, right? And I think I have seen a lot of reflection in the kind of ecosystem I'm in, and I would be interested to see what kind of, how is IIM Bangalore and this program focusing on the vulnerabilities that women entrepreneurs bring into the classrooms or the sessions that they have with their mentors? Because the business and the rest of it, I'm sure, is guided well. But this is my question.
Thank you, Amrita. So, yeah, I'll just give you a very quick background about who I am and what I do. My first 10 years have been in corporate, foundation, and academia, and I was hell bent on doing a PhD and becoming a faculty somewhere in a leading business school somewhere, maybe. And then I chance upon entrepreneurship, and that's when I got into it. And initially, it was not entrepreneurship; it was incubation, incubators. And trust me, I was doing a project where we needed to build capacity for an incubator and could not find material. So we did an experiment with a bunch of incubators who were starting off, and then learned a lot. And from there, I've moved on to do work with startups and entrepreneurs of all kind and all stages and funding and everything, sector agnostically. And then amazingly, I also fell into women entrepreneurship, and I joined NSRCEL, the business incubator in Bangalore. Um, I work with the program which is Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women, and predominantly looking at helping women entrepreneurs with scale, establish businesses to scale, right? So not idea stage, not they have businesses they have been running for a couple of years, so they are making some revenue and then they don't know where to go, what to do. And what we figured is that most of us and increasingly entrepreneurs do not have the time to take a break, right? To step back, to look at what they need to do, right? So this particular program, which is more like 3 months program with a continued alumni support and building communities across the country. And this is the 15th year of the program in India. So it has massive peer and community engagement, right? And I keep on meeting people where there are people from what started 10 years back, and now they are on the other side of the table mentoring the younger or the people who are starting off, and that's the way they're also giving back to the society or to the community in general. So which feels good. Each cohort I see 70 amazing women entrepreneurs in a class, and I'm very overwhelmed because they come from different backgrounds, leaving and finding time for the program with the sheer want to learn and go to the next level. So those have been very unique for the program. What I typically feel is most of the women entrepreneurs that come to the program have incredibly, like, very passionate, right? But down the line, 2 3 years, when they take a stop or take a break to see where am I heading, a lot of times we find that there is sometimes they might not have thought through about the second layer of the management, whom to take it to give it to the next level. A lot of time business is not structured, right? So it's very so we spend a lot of time helping them even articulate the business better, right? Could you help? Could you talk about your business in maybe ABC approaches that will be easier for the other person to understand, right? So that's one. Second is a lot of these women, and we continuously are seeing people coming from non-metros, right? It's still Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, people come on. But then there are smaller cities. I have entrepreneurs who are in remote areas of Assam as well as Chennai. I have a lady who comes from very interiors of Lucknow, and no one would have in her community or family had thought that she will ever step out of the city, right? So they don't get that access to the community, that, and also they have this inhibition, should I go, right? So pushing them to that next level to be able to find those opportunities, right? That, and giving them that confidence that we are there, right? It's all the peer community. Why don't you go and talk to another 10 people, right? And after that 10 15 people, they get that confidence, they get that, okay, I can go and talk to anyone, right? So that has happened numerable times. And then when they go to the next conclave or meet or something, and they message me, I went there and I've talked to 5 people and I also have a customer now. I was like, wow. So that has been there, and we're still working with them. So I'll not talk about much of the curriculum. We actually tailor made it. We keep on updating the curriculum. I sat and revised our entire curriculum this time. We do one-on-one mentoring. So we figure out what are their short-term challenges and try to help them resolve those, right? And imagine this year we are working with 400 approximate women entrepreneurs. So we will be talking to each one of them to figure out. Sometimes it's not even a problem. Sometimes it's just a mind block they might have, right? Sometimes they don't know something, right? So we try to help them, and sometimes it's just giving them a ear, right? We're just there. If you want to come and talk, come. It's okay. So they need that comfort and that support, and that helps. And another is celebrating them. So when we have a way of um, this, there's a certificate at the end of the course, and while we cannot invite all the families, what we do is we do a Zoom call, right? So all the family members, the business partners, everyone can attend to it. So initially we were like, how, what good will it bring? But then we see that when they go back, right, there is an appreciation, right? That is a huge thing for a majority of them, right? That yes, we did something, we are doing something, and it's getting acknowledged. And people we live with, people who are our environment, our family, our friends, right? Everyone joined in and they are celebrating us because we have reached a level, right? So that has again helped. And then last would be the capital. Working capital, growth capital continues to be a problem. We're trying to also work with few agencies to see how we can help the women entrepreneurs go to the next level. That is sector across. It will help other entrepreneurs also, but then right now the focus is the women entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think Akshay, for you, my question would be: you come from you've been an investment banker, so you literally have foundations in the left brain category for the longest. How are you really? What solutions or what is your guidance to all the entrepreneurs you are mentoring at lunch? Because I'm sure they can do. I mean, and when I mean the entrepreneurs, especially because there's so many social entrepreneurs, right? So is there a way, so when you're answering, if you can also give us an idea of, is there a way to customize these support system ideas for this sector, besides other things that you would guide them with?
Thank you. All right, for everyone, I am paying for my sins right now, so please no judgment. All right, so just in terms of, let me also do a very quick introduction, though I think the major points already come through. So I am one of those small town boys that Susmita was talking about who actually escaped 3 generations of business and decided I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. So because you can't switch off, right? It's something that was just alluded to. And I wanted to be able to switch off when I went home. So luckily, and Punjabi family, so it was just pass ho ja beta, and that was enough. But thankfully, managed to go to a decent B school, landed up at Morgan Stanley, spent about 17 years being a bloodsucker, and then got dead tired of it. Quit, took some time off, enjoyed myself. Then when I started to get bored again, had to start going to school, so I had nothing to do. Tried to figure out what, and I did land up in the social sector by chance. I was evaluating starting an accelerator for the nudge for non-profit entrepreneurs at one end and a private equity role at the other end. I said, haven't done this, so it'll be more fun to do and it'll be more challenging. So ended up here. 5 years. I've had a ball, no regrets. I was, we were talking about the vicarious pleasures of living a founder's life without the risk. That is what I've been doing. Because I get to work, we worked now with over 100 entrepreneurs between our incubator and accelerator over the 5 years I've been with the Nudge. And I've got, with a lot of them, not all of them, but with a lot of them, I've got to walk a little part of their very, very long journeys. So I've enjoyed myself a lot. Now, just going to the support piece of it, that was establishing my credentials, a long way to it. But in support, we started out thinking about what do entrepreneurs need, and it's felt capital, right? Logically. Then it was about access to ecosystem, whether it is supply chains, and in the for-profit system, this is done better. Uh, in the non-profit system, which is where we ended up mostly working, or social enterprise, which is what a lot of you represent, it's not done as well. But access to ecosystem, which mainly ended up being access to funders again, but also in some cases, as I said, supply chain. And finally, that structure of support, right? Now, we chose, basically, we call it capacitation. And we do capacitation the same way that most people do capacitation, which is through mentorship. But it felt like it wasn't enough, and there needed to be more pieces in there. Um, so I actually, when I started the accelerator, we used to have a concept of strategic mentors who basically helped you think through scale, grow, etc., all of that. What we also then brought on is we said growing enterprises need something else. So we brought on technology mentors, we brought on marketing mentors, and we brought on HR mentors, right? How do you recruit? How do you brand? And how do you use technology, which creates that efficiency? Even then, it felt like it wasn't enough. So I've also got coaches. I actually have some batchmates of mine who are not just coaches but also certified psychologists who I have connected mentors to ensure that they work, the entrepreneurs to ensure that they work their way through the challenges. Because the one thing that I've learned in the last 5 years is that entrepreneurship is the loneliest journey possible, right? You can't share, and vulnerability either comes right, when you are that desperate, as she said, um, or it is basically it's more breakdown. You don't have safe spaces, right? You can't be vulnerable in front of your employees, they're all going to leave. You can't be vulnerable in front of your funders because then they're not going to fund you. So it becomes very challenging. Again, vulnerability in front of family is also sometimes fairly restricted, especially for women. I've seen, I've seen divorces, I've seen separations, I've worked with founders through those, and it's more women founders having that than male founders. Um, but and therefore creating those safe spaces and creating support spirals. So how do you create, and of course again looking at hygiene. So the first point is, let's say left brain, right brain, as we were discussing. um, you're creative, right? If you can't do those pieces, you either get you get a co-founder who basically fills the gaps that you've got. And it is not easy to find a co-founder. I've seen it done very few times successfully, because to find someone who shares your vision is very challenging. Or you basically go to so many service providers that exist now, right? There is a fractional chief technology officer startup in town, right? Which works with nonprofits, which works with social entrepreneurs. There are accounting firms that only work with social entrepreneurs and nonprofits now, don't work at all with the corporate sector. There are law firms that do that. So if you are facing a challenge, I have ended up, and we have this entire ecosystem. We used to call this hygiene, and we didn't pay a lot of attention to it. Did we realize how much time gets burnt for an entrepreneur from a mind space perspective on this front? And then we said, no, we're going to collate this. So, and we, by the way, we did have some people, but we grew that list by peer sourcing, right? I went and asked 20 entrepreneurs, when you wanted to recruit your CTOs, you must have gone to HR firms who worked better for you and who didn't. And based on that, you could actually do that, right? Um, we also started doing a lot of peer sessions around whatever they wanted to discuss. It didn't matter. It could well be, how do you go and find your first set of team members who are going to at one stage become your CXOs. It could be about How do you retain people when you can't pay them the kind of money that is paid outside? So all of those pieces, is it equity? Is it, is it a differential? How do you build a culture as you move from one office to half a dozen different places, etc.? And 90% of the time, I didn't have the answers. Someone else did in the system, right? So if you put, if you're willing to actually run across that problem with your peer set, very often you find it feels like you compete. When you look at someone and you see that they've gotten a deal or they've gotten a customer, trust me, they are at least as unhappy as you are, just in different ways. So if you talk to them and tell them that I have this problem, they'll probably tell you their problem. You might actually have a solve for that one while they have a solve for yours, right? So I found peer to peer actually ended up working pretty much the best. Just putting people together who are on that same journey is something that works beautifully, because within that space, vulnerability becomes very easy. All it takes is one person speaking up, and suddenly everyone starts to speak up, right? So, sorry, long answer.
No, but I think it's covered a lot of things. I think I just want to set the context now for any audience members to have any questions that you would like, because I think I'm just keeping a tab on the time. Any questions for them? Do you have?
Like yours?
Oh, yes.
Just wanted to, taking your point in terms of this entrepreneurs, we have more than 70% of the staff in our office is all women. And thankfully, I have two other co-founders who are women. So when you have three founders, obviously a lot of the load is taken up. But still, for us, building the next level of thinkers within the organization as a startup, it's that much more difficult than when you're funded. We are not funded. We have not gone to external funding. It's completely bootstrap. So your journey in terms of how has that been in terms of having the next brain in the team who can also not just execute but also think a little bit, and like trying to help you in the problem solving. Otherwise, it all comes back to the three founders who are always juggling between whether to do marketing or to fix the operational problem in the warehouse or stuff like that. So that's what would be your take? How would you go about approaching this kind of a problem? I think a lot of founders would be facing in the early stage of their business.
If you'd like to take it as an entrepreneur, and then I can take a stab at what I've seen people do.
So honestly, I've been bad at it because when I hire people, my corporate background kind of plays up, and I spent a long time in leadership training. So I feel no, I can train them to become better. I can train them to become better. Can't let them go, so on and so forth. I think it's a bit of hit and miss. And what has worked for me is you bring in people for a certain job, for a certain core day job, and then the people who will grow on to become your next level, to become your CXOs, as Akshay said it, are people who will show that they're always hungry to take on more. So I got in, for example, I got in someone to manage our marketplaces because we sell out of a lot of marketplaces, a pure ops job. 2 months later, she kind of started managing my office because she would take on more. So everything that I felt was too much for me, I started giving it to her. Then she started managing larger B2B clients. So I feel like, and in startups our size, I don't know the size of your startup, but I think in startups our size, you don't want someone who says no, or this is not my job, or I cannot do it, or 7 baj ke ghar jana hai. Those are red flags in my mind. So people who want to grow, who the seat on the table in this setup has to be earned. It doesn't matter what your designations is. We are small organizations. We are flat organizations. There's no CEO and CEO secretary and VP, AVP, and so on. Anyone can walk in. So this, as a founder, I can tell you, I want the person who walks into my office and makes my life easier, solves the problem for me. When I bring up something in the morning meeting, he or she says, "Don't worry, Arundhati, I'll take care of it." Those are the people I want on my team. And is everybody going to be that person? No. Somebody will come in who appears to be that person, and very soon you'll find is not that person. So I think it's a bit of hit and miss, but the people who show that they want to be those people, you've got to then take them under your wing and train them and empower them and listen to them. I think a lot of times we also as founders, now that ego gets the better of us. So someone says something and we're like, no, but I have decided it's going to be like that. Because if you want accountability, you have to empower. Sometimes we also don't do a great job of that.
Yeah, pretty much the same actually. We at the Nudge we have something for recruitment that's called the kick-ass model. Now the kick is only to make it sound good, right? So it's attitude, smarts, and skills. We recruit last for skills because skills can be built, but attitude is the single most critical thing, as she pointed out, right? Who really wants to work for you? If they don't, then they might have the smarts, they might have the skills, but they're not who you want to invest for your future in. And then you look for the smarts. Of course, we'd like to have all three, but usually you don't get that, right? So that's the prioritization in which we end up looking for it. And the second one is basically, again, empowerment. That's where I've seen most successful. There is such a thing as too much democracy, right? So typically what happens is that organizations, when they start out, work very well up to a certain stage with one person driving it, right? So the example I usually use here is the construction sector. If you look at it, typically over the last few decades, the only company that's moved above $1 billion in revenue size is actually Larsen & Toubro. Everyone else, when they hit the $1 billion size, imploded. Hindustan Construction, Nagarjuna, NSRCEL, etc. And the challenge was that there was one person at the helm who was driving it, and there weren't enough CXOs. So the problem exists. Question is, when do you hit it types? And that is, before that is when you plan for it, right? But also you know who's working for you. One is at recruitment time, you have to be thinking, what is that person going to do for me in a few years? But that apart, while you've got people working for you, as she said, not everyone's going to end up being that person who's worthwhile to be your CXO. But if you don't have anyone, then there is a recruitment challenge where you need to start looking upfront, saying that I'm only hiring for ops, right? So you can also define it, right? So we define it as ops and product. I need to have enough product thinking in the organization as versus pure operations thinking, because ops will execute very well. They will do your chain, etc., all of that. But if you don't keep evolving, then that's the product thinking that you need.
Continuously at shortage, that any skill that comes is what finally goes into it at this point of time.
I know, but we still have, at the Nudge as a non-profit, we still end up with about maybe 50 interviews before 50 people. There are a lot more interviews before we actually end up picking a candidate. Is that painful? And that is true at the lower level, that is true at senior levels. I took up marketing because our head of marketing had left us in December. It was supposed to be for 1 month. 1 month, sorry. Now that has blurred. So I am just in the process of handing over marketing to the new marketing head that we've hired. And the point was, we weren't willing to compromise. It hurts. You're going to, as 3 founders also, you're going to find that you're doing the work of 30 people. But that's the name of the game, right?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This was a lovely conversation. I know we can keep endlessly talking about it, but clearly, I think as just one takeaway which summarizes everything is, as entrepreneurs, I think the way we define success cannot be what we see around us. It has to be something that we define it. And to define that, we have to look after ourselves. And I think we have to embrace vulnerability, ask for help, no shame, no guilt. We are stuck, we need help, we should just shout it out. I think so. Thank you, Priya, and everyone, so that we could have this session. And yeah, thank you so much.